how big an impact is your nationality, your citizenship, going to have on your love life? Got some hearts behind us here in the center of Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. So I've been traveling in this region quite a lot with clients in the last 2 years with the Russo-Ukrainian war next door. I haven't been going with clients to Russia, Belarus or Ukraine, but I have been going to countries like here, obviously Moldova, Poland, the Baltic states, so Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, and to Kazakhstan quite a bit. So countries that I would include in New Europe. Now I know, before any writes below, Kazakhstan is very far in the east of Europe. It's based in Central Asia, but nationality and the perception of where you're from plays a big role. But it is going to surprise you, particularly if you're from North America and you don't have so much experience traveling this region. You are going to be really surprised by the perception and whether it's positive or negative with respect to your nationality. So let's get into it. Hi, Submergent.
SAR Experience.
Probably this video is going to offend a few people. It's become very PC, politically correct, not to talk about things like status based on nationality or ethnicity or religion. But that's not the way humans operate, sadly, and might as well live in the real world and talk about it. So here I will put the top category as being guys from Moldova itself or the neighboring countries. So Ukraine and Romania are the neighboring countries. And I would even extend that to most of the former Soviet Union. So if you've got that commonality as with the local people as being from, say, Russia or being from maybe the Baltics, probably also going to be the same kind of status, right? And second of all is going to be Westerners. Now I'm going to say Westerners as including people from Central Europe, like maybe Czechs or Poles, because that's also part of the West, even though in the parlance on YouTube, people talk about it as if it's not, but the reality is it is. And I think here you would be perceived more in the same way, because the socioeconomic reality in Moldova is that this is one of the poorest countries on the European continent. So basically being Polish or being, British, not going to be a massive difference nowadays. 10, 20 years ago, there was a big difference, but not today. Then the third category is going to be non-Western foreigners. So if you're from somewhere else that's not considered a high status country, maybe it's going to be Turkey, maybe it's going to be from somewhere in Africa, maybe it's from somewhere in Southeast Asia, then you're going to be put in that third category of status based on your nationality. Now, how do you move in terms of status? Well, one of the ways is actually just learning the local language. That will move you up probably one category, right? So if you're from, say, the UK or Ireland and you learn Romanian and even Russian for here, because a lot of people speak Russian and they consider it kind of local, even though it's not an official language, then yes, you can jump up and you can be in that top tier category in terms of status. That is one way to get around it. And also by spending a lot of time here, then you're not going to be put in that category of being the tourist, because these countries used to have a lot of sex tourism. I don't think they actually get that so much today, but they did in the past. So being someone who's coming here and being a tourist and using English, said not going to come off as particularly high status nowadays. Again, 10, 20 years ago, it was very different. But we're dealing with 2023, not 1993. So that is the reality. And in general, I have not been seen here as actually being from Western Europe. It's kind of interesting with the war in Ukraine, the Russo-Ukrainian war. I started coming back here to Moldova in the summer of 2022, and I was wearing a lot of Ukrainian patriotic t-shirts, and actually most people just assumed I was Ukrainian, thought it's odd to have a bit of an accent in Romanian or in Russian when I'm speaking, and they were then surprised to find out that I was actually born in Ireland. Don't think it made a big difference in terms of my status. It's not like suddenly, oh, you're Irish. That makes you, so much more of value to the ladies here. I think it's more that, well, the girls that really want to leave and are maybe open to being the green card girl, as I like to say, they probably already found someone and they left a long time ago. So being kind of seen as more local is what's in vogue. So anyways, let's go on to the next country. That is how I perceive the degrees of status here in Moldova on the dating market as a guy. So second country I'm going to deal with is Ukraine. Now this is going to hurt the egos, I think, of many a wife hunter who's been sold a Stepford wife dream by some dodgy matchmaker, and that is number one, clear number one in the hierarchy is Ukrainian, and no surprises probably as to why with the Russo-Ukrainian war. Ukrainian men are the ones out protecting their loved ones on the front lines, and basically for Ukrainian women, especially those that have stayed behind, there's a very clear status hierarchy, and that is Ukrainian men number one. Number two, I would say, is like an allied state to Ukraine in this time of war. So obviously countries like the US, UK, most of Europe, and anywhere else that's allied basically with Ukraine is going to be seen as, you know, second tier status, I would say, at the moment. A question you're going to get if you show up in Ukraine at the moment is why you in Ukraine when there's a war. So if you're not there with a purpose, like you're helping the country, probably not going to be seen as particularly high status even in spite of your US or British passport. To be there for a good reason, I would say, and help the Ukrainian people, going to help you with your status there a lot. Then I would say third category is like the rest of the world basically, except for the category that's going to be number four, and that's going to be Russians, right? Probably Russian passport. I would say your status level has plummeted even forward. It already dropped quite a bit since 2014 and Russia's invasion of Crimea and of Donbass, but now this more full-scale invasion as part of the Russo-Ukrainian war has plummeted the status of being Russian, but that's not a big surprise, and I don't think there's so many Russian guys trying to come as tourists to Ukraine at the moment on a Russian passport. Probably not the place where they would head to. Third country we're going to deal with is Latvia. And I would say that it's pretty similar to here in Moldova. Basically, if you are from Latvia itself or somewhere else in the Baltics, maybe from Poland, Ukraine, Russia even still, depends, that can obviously be a bit polarizing, then you're going to be in the top status tier. The second one is going to be other Westerners who are not from a country that's had some kind of cultural similarity or history with Latvia. And then the third category is going to be non-Western foreigners. And again, in Latvia, speaking the local language will help you a lot with, you know, those people who speak it as their first language, like Latvian, which is the official language, and also Russian, which is widely spoken, especially in Riga. Now, the next country up, number four, is Kazakhstan. I would say it's it's pretty different to the others. I think there's bigger foreigner factor being in Kazakhstan, so I would say that basically, and Kazakhstanis themselves are renowned for the hospitality of guests. So I would say basically everybody's almost in a top category, the same status. You can say that sometimes Kazakhstanis put all guests above themselves in terms of status. But basically, yes, if you're from somewhere that's, I would say, socioeconomically more developed than Kazakhstan, you were in the top tier automatically. That's obviously going to cover the US, UK, although I have to say that Almaty is a cool city. It's not like it's super poor or anything. And then I would say people from socioeconomically inferior country. I think it's more socioeconomic with Kazakhstanis. Just my feeling about it. Definitely it's a very different dichotomy than in the other countries that I'm describing. And the final country I'm going to deal with is Poland. Now I would say that in Poland, being either, of course, Polish or Ukrainian, Belarusian, there's probably a difference in how you're going to be perceived by different people, because there is a big Ukrainian and a big Belarusian diaspora in the city. So, you know, Poles are probably going to react in terms of the status differently than Ukrainians and Belarusians. I would say that for Poles, because, you know, they're obviously the main group in the city are Polish people, then they're going to see themselves as actually the highest status, yes. And then, depending, probably going to see Ukrainians and Belarus maybe slightly above other Westerners, we'll say, right? I'm going to include Ukraine as being Western, and the Belarusians who've actually fled from Belarus as being in that kind of broader Western category. After that, you've got other, obviously, Westerners, as I said, so Americans, Brits, Irish, French, Germans, Australians, etc. And then I'd say you go down to the next level, which is non-Western foreigners, and Russians, probably not the best rationality either to have at the moment in Poland. Poland just historically has not had great relations with Russia, obviously, and yeah, with the current Russo-Ukrainian War, it's even dropped further. So I would say those are the categories with respect to Poland. So hence why those quasi-incel minions of the Russian YouTuber Roman NKZ, what is it called? NFKRZ, whatever he uses as an acronym, Gatso, and the other guy who's Serbian, Georgian Serbians, not going to be considered high status, probably explains why they hate so much on Brits and Irish in their videos, because yeah, they're just a bit jealous, it would seem. So what I've noticed, actually, and I'm going to tell you a few anecdotes about how the language can affect your perception, the perception of your status in Poland. I have a good friend who's there who speaks Polish. He's French-Belgian, and I see it myself that, you know, when we are hanging out or talking in Warsaw, that as soon as they realize he speaks Polish, their eyes light up. They're super excited to meet a Western European guy who can speak Polish. It definitely helps a lot. Now, does this help with, say, the 20-30% of the city that's Belarusian or Ukrainian? Probably not so much, but of course, as a contrast, I have, you know, been with a client quite a bit in Warsaw who speaks Russian natively because his parents are actually born here in Moldova, and I've actually been here helping him reclaim his nationality, going back to his roots. And when he speaks in Russian with girls, a lot of nearly all Belarusians and a lot of Ukrainians still see him as high status, but there are also a few Ukrainians who don't want to speak Russian, and even though his heritage is from here in Moldova and in Ukraine, he's not of heritage from actual Russia itself, they reacted a bit negatively to that, and they basically had to call in your Irish boy here who can also speak Ukrainian, and then boom, status went up again and interest went up again. So definitely learning the local language, spending time in the country, this is the best way to counteract any negative status associations with your particular passport. I see that so much with friends and clients in this region. Throughout this video, I've discussed a few ways how you can raise your status in spite of whatever nationality that you have. And one of them was by learning the local language, something I emphasize more and more in my videos here, because I just see with my clients, the ones that speak a local language versus the ones that don't, the difference. And it's pretty big. Also, living here, maybe it's not full-time, but at least coming regularly also helps with your status. You get out of that tourist box, which is not the best one to be in nowadays in this region. And it's also going to be affected by your social circle, right? So if you're mixing the right social circles, that's going to raise your perceived status as well. Being Billy No Mates here as a foreigner, not particularly seen as high value versus a guy who's integrated and knows the high status people of the city, right? And that is something that I help my clients with on the in-person experience. It's normally guys that have some perspective. Maybe they're not committed to moving to a city, but they want to come and experience it. And we will go out with my crew in a city, like here in Chisinau, can also be Warsaw in Poland, Riga in Latvia, and Almaty, the Almighty, in Kazakhstan. With the Russo-Ukrainian War, I'm not currently going to Russia, Belarus, or Ukraine, although let's see in 2024 how the situation develops in Ukraine with the Russo-Ukrainian War, because, well, if things change for the better, then of course we'll be going back to Ukraine. So the kind of typical tourist experience that guys have when they come to this region is, maybe they were doing a solo mission, but normally they come with some friends, and they end up swiping on Tinder, first of all, to meet the local ladies. Have lots of videos about that. Not going to be the highest quality girls that you can find in this region on Tinder. Or they do, I mean, some of them do the day game malarkey, walk around like basically a pest, annoying girls. Also not going to be very high value or lead to much success in reality. Or they do what I think most guys do, is they go out and they party, they hit up the local bars, the clubs, and unfortunately they don't have the insider information. They basically go where a lot of other tourists probably go. So it's going to be a lot of competition, because if you don't speak the local language, you don't live there, then you're also in that category of tourists, and you're going to have, you know, especially in a place like Warsaw in Poland, less here in Chisinau because there are less tourists, but in a place like Warsaw, there's so many tourists, guys, coming. It reminds me a little bit of Odessa during the summer, back in the day when you had the hordes of horny foreigners flocking down and almost none of them having any success. So they go to the general admission, very obvious places where not the best girls are going to be anyways, because back home, do you hang out in the touristic places? Do you think the hottest local girls hang out in the touristic places? I doubt it. And that's not the case here in this region, which I'm calling New Europe. It's basically the region between Russia and Germany in between, but as I said, I focus on those 4 cities for the moment because they're just, I think, the best ones personally. And most guys, they just end up super frustrated by the end of the weekend. Often they end up in strip clubs, which is not a very good idea. In this region, there's a lot of problems, criminality, guys get drugged, they get robbed, or they end up meeting some scammer, maybe on online dating, and they get relieved of a lot of their cash. So it ends pretty unfulfilling for most guys if they live the tourist experience. So that contrast, and it can also end up costing them a good bit more money because they don't know where to go, where's the best value even. And of course you get scammed, it can be very expensive. Typical scam is going to be like $1,500 US probably. In my experience of having seen a lot of foreigners get scammed in the past, and even if it's just a meal plan scam, like you get used for free food by some girl that you met probably on online dating, it just doesn't give you value for your money and you don't get the real experience here. So contrast that with coming with me. We're gonna be with my cool crew. We're gonna go to the insider places. We're going to not be queuing outside because we have a table and we're gonna have a good table. And we're gonna party like rock stars, basically. And in my experience, that's the best way to kick off your experience here in the region. It's come just in with a big bam. You're gonna get access to my over 10 years of encyclopedic knowledge of the region. That is why I'm known as the Insider. I'm also known as the Special Forces by some of my other clients because I have the experience of being here. I've traveled to the countries, lived in them, dated scores of beautiful women, speak the local languages, understand the laws of the country, which is important for visas, but actually here in Chisinau helping a client with not just a visa, but actually nationality, because I'm a former lawyer. Actually worked as a lawyer many years ago, so I understand all this kind of stuff. It's like second nature to me. Also assessing geopolitical risk, because I have a background in international relations and strategic studies. So that is why I'm known as the Insider for this region. And of course, we're going to be hanging out with the creme de la creme, the super hotties of the region as well, because that just goes with the overall experience of being high value here in the region. So you can see it's like night and day, the two experiences, and just the opportunities and having just an amazing time and maybe figuring out if this is the right place for you to move to permanently. Merci. This is what it's all about on the in-person experience, but it is not for everybody. I don't accept everybody. It is by application only, which is why down below there is an application form. And before you do that, if you haven't already, maybe you're newer to the channel and to my content, there are 3 playlists that I always put together that tell you to watch before you apply, because it's good for you to be informed so you understand what it's about. And the first one is giving you some vlogs with some previous client testimonials of the cities that I go to now on the Zara experience, the in-person experience, and in the past. So you get a bit of a flavor, gives you a little bit more of an idea what it's about, rather than just what I say here. You can see it visually. And the second one is my set of tutorials, basically, for dating the uber beautiful, the 9s and 10s of this region. And even if you fall short of getting a 9 or 10, probably going to learn a lot from that anyways. If you go ahead, I had someone right underneath, but I only want to say they're a 7 or an 8. Well, aim for the 9s and 10s. If you fall short, you'll end up with a 7 or 8. And the third one is my Vodka Vodcast series, which at this point there's over 50 hours of content, so probably not going to watch that in one go. Go scroll through the various videos there and there. I dive deep into the mentality and cultural differences between here and North America, Western Europe, so that you understand, at least you get an idea from my videos about what are going to be the biggest obstacles and hurdles for you to overcome in this region, and you don't have to spend over 10 years figuring it out, because I spent a lot of time, and that is one of the big things about coming with the Insider, is that it will save you a lot of time, a lot of wasted emotions, and a lot of money. So in the words of a famous ice hockey legend, Wayne Gretzky, a man of Ukrainian, Polish, and Belarusian origins, he said famously in an interview that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So down below, application form, and even if you're not the best fit for the in-person experience, there'll probably be other ways that I can help you. So it's worth your while going down and filling out that application form. And on this absolutely spectacularly sunny November autumn, you can see the lovely autumn colors, the leaves on the ground here in the park, just beside the cathedral in Chisinau. I'm going to bid you, what am I going to bid you? I'm going to bid you a Seară Bună from Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Ciao, ciao. See you in the next video.
SAR Experience.